It's the Fulhamish podcast, your independent voice of Fulham FC. My name's Sammy James. Welcome to the show. Today, it is the Thursday club ahead of Fulham's game against Aston Villa at the Cottage on Saturday. Finally back at Craven Cottage. It feels like an eternity. The international break has come to an end, and sometimes when it's the international roundup, we don't have very much to talk about. Today, we have tons. Lots of interesting games for various Fulham players across the globe. Also have a stack of emails and a fun game for Jack at the end, which he knows nothing about yet, but I'm very excited. Hello, Jack.
Hello, Sammy. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Before we start, I have to do one final push for the live show on Saturday. If you've already got your tickets to see Fulhamish live at the Half Moon, then thank you very much. I've just been on the Half Moon website. There are 7 tickets left as of 4 p.m. on Wednesday. So there is a link in the description of the podcast. It's going to be reaction to the Villa game in part 1. Then in part 2, I'm going to be on the stage with Jack and Loz answering questions from the audience.
Nice.
We'll pass a microphone around. And then
that always goes well.
Yeah. Never dangerous at all.
Never do live maths.
And then we're also going to record This'll Catch On, which will go in next Thursday's Thursday Club with Jack and Loz. Me and Yasmin have been going through the This'll Catch On entries. There are so many good ones.
Excellent. I can't wait to listen.
Yeah, I'm really sad you're not there on Saturday, Jack.
Look, that's how you'll sell the last 7 tickets. They're not going to have to put up with me.
If you were on the fence about whether to come, Jack won't be there. Maybe that will mean you don't come, or maybe that will mean you do come.
Perhaps. I'm going to be in Galicia watching Deportivo La Coruña.
Very nice.
How about that for a weekend? I was really hoping to watch Celta, who are playing Real Madrid, but tickets are impossible to get hands on. So I'm going to see the once mighty Deportivo La Coruña instead.
I was going to ask, are they La Liga?
Second tier.
They're second tier?
Yeah.
Okay. I always think of them and Alaves as being kind of the same era of like being incredibly good for about 2 years at the beginning of the noughties.
Depor were amazing, like a genuinely really good side. They got to a Champions League quarter-final. They won the league. They were incredible. They're a really, really good side. Super Depor, they were called at that point. Some major names. Fran was the one that always stood out to me. His son, Nico Gonzalez, obviously played for Barcelona for a little while and is now playing for Porto, which is kind of wild. It makes me feel really old. So we're going to move swiftly on.
I mean, I knew we had some tangents to go on today. Deportivo La Coruña was not one that I had planned, but that is the Thursday club sometimes.
Exactly. This is how it goes.
Let's dive into internationals because, well, I tweeted earlier, actually. I suddenly woke up this morning, looked at what we had to talk about. I was like, oh my God, how are we going to fit a podcast in? Harry Wilson, Raúl, Andreas, Sasha Lukic, the Nigerian boys, Timmy Castagne. There was lots of interesting moments, particularly in the last few days. Let's start off with, I think, Harry Wilson for Wales.
Yeah.
We feel like, I feel like we discuss Harry Wilson after every international break. Wales fans cannot understand how this man is carrying their nation, yet cannot sometimes even get on the bench for Fulham. What a wild situation, but 2 more incredible performances, lots more goals.
Yeah, I mean, a goal in each game from Harry, and he's just one of those players that I desperately want to see succeed.
Same.
Like, everything about him, I really want him to find that consistent run for Fulham, to be that guy and be that player I think that he threatened to be ever since he broke through at Liverpool all those years ago. And we've never seen that real consistent run outside of that season in the Championship with obviously Niskin Skabano and Alexander Mitrovic. It's never quite translated. You get these flashes of brilliance from Harry in a Fulham shirt and equal amounts of frustration. And to be honest, I think this is the thing, that every time he goes on Wales duty and in an international break, he performs, and there is something about the setup of that side that clearly plays into Harry Wilson's strengths, or he feels liberated in a red shirt. I don't know what it is, but clearly the moment he goes on international duty, maybe it's the fact that he's now a real senior member of that squad, and actually
arguably the most.
The responsibility lies on his shoulders a lot for what Wales are trying to do, and that's, I think, maybe part of it. But the truth is that he hasn't really taken his opportunities when he's been given them in this Fulham season. And ultimately, with the way that Adama Traore is playing, with that left-wing link-up between Emil Smith-Rowe and Alex Iwobi, with the fact that Reece Nelson is having impacts off the bench as well, it feels really difficult for Harry to get himself into this team right now. I really hope he gets that opportunity, and I really hope that this time he takes it, because I think there is a wonderful footballer there. And, so many of the brilliant things about Harry Wilson we've rarely seen. He came in as a set-piece specialist, one of those people that was going to, stand over free kicks. And yes, okay, part of that was he wasn't always given the responsibility. But when he has taken free kicks, they haven't quite come off for Fulham in the way that, it has quite a lot for Andreas. Not maybe necessarily directly, but off the bar and us scoring in the rebounds and all of those things. So it's a really hard situation for Harry Wilson. He's just going to have to keep plugging away. I think, performing on international duty can't do him any harm in terms of what he brings to the table. But we've got to see that in a white shirt before he gets that run in the team and earns that run in the team that he's going to have to, break through to get, given the performances around him at the moment.
Well, you just think of the two players that are ahead of him. I honestly think it's at this point a terrible run of form for one of Adama or Emil Smith-Rowe, or an injury, that I don't see how he breaks through into that, because, as you say, the right wing's fairly locked down with Adama. He's not getting dropped anytime soon. And even if Emil Smith-Rowe did have a bad run of form or an injury, it's not necessarily that Harry Wilson would get drafted in the 10 first, when you think that could be Kenny or that could be Pereira getting pushed up.
I would, and I have said this before, like to see him in the 10, and obviously that's a role he's played more for Wales.
Yeah.
It was interesting watching him kind of play in a midfield 3 a little bit more this time, and actually take that responsibility in the centre of the park. Now, international football doesn't always translate. Look, I'm a massive international football fan, but it doesn't always translate in the same way, and actually Harry might be a little bit lightweight for what Fulham are trying to do in those areas. And actually you see what Marco Silva is building, and we've talked before about physicality and how important that is to Marco Silva in a team and what he's trying to build there. You look at, kind of the strengths in the middle, and it's a lot of ball carriers. It's a lot of players who can shrug off a challenge. Wilson's never really felt like that player. And so I wonder if there is just a stylistic difference there between Wilson and Silva that hasn't really ever changed in the way that Fulham are trying to play. But equally, he was a top goal contributor last season, and that probably shouldn't be forgotten. Even if his role was somewhat in and out of the team, he still had that kind of impact on Fulham as a whole. I don't think we should write Harry Wilson off. And I think it's important that he does go and put in these performances and show that he can do different things. I would like to see him get a go in the 10 if that option becomes available. Now, it's going to be difficult. We saw that Pereira got that job against City when Smith-Rowe was dropped out of the team in order to give them a little bit more defensive solidity. When Fulham are looking for a creative player in there, it's going to be Smith-Rowe first and foremost. But I think he's just got to keep plugging away, and hopefully his break will come, because I would really like to see him succeed in a white shirt.
Yeah. Next up, speaking of set pieces, Raúl Jimenez. What on earth?
Yeah, Harry Wilson ain't getting free kicks, actually. Take that back.
If you haven't seen Raúl Jimenez's free kick that he scored against the USMNT last night, it's so good. It's not like 20 yards. He's miles out. It's the proper postage stamp, top corner, so much pace on it. And you think about this guy's last month, 3 goals in 4 Premier League games, that backheel assist against Manchester City. And look, you can say that backheel assist is a little bit of, well, it's a little bit of luck, but it's also incredible.
Yes, but he's trying to do it.
Yeah, he's trying to do it. And then he's going on international duty. And by the way, he'd lost his place in the Mexican squad. Helps that they've got their former manager back, who I think had trust in him, and now is saying...
He was quite poor in their first game. They played against Valencia.
But he only came on as a sub,
yeah,
didn't he?
But he didn't do very much. And this is something that we know. Raúl isn't great as an impact substitute. But he was sublime in the game against the US.
And
he
the assist as well.
The assist is brilliant. I mean, he gave Tim Ream headaches, which is really big headaches. Maybe he's only good against teams that he's played against before. For him, Anthony Robinson, no one could contain Raúl. He felt like a man on fire. And that's exactly what you want coming back into this game at the weekend.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the one thing that will make Marco Silva's life a bit difficult is he played very late on Tuesday night. It was effectively Wednesday morning our time, and he's got to get back
well into Wednesday morning our time.
And he was
about 4:30 in the morning.
He was in Guadalajara, so I can't imagine he's getting back to Motspur Park much before Thursday. It does.
They would have definitely given him a day off as well. It's just one day of training. He's coming back in on Friday.
I mean, same for Anthony Robinson as well. You do wonder if it's going to be a little bit tough for those boys. And Marco is quite a stickler for making sure people have enough time between games. So I do wonder if that might be a factor. However, this man is just oozing confidence right now. And if have we maybe got a little bit of the old Raúl Jimenez back?
Definitely a little bit. I don't know if we'll ever see Raúl as kind of full-blooded as he was at Wolves, and absolutely fair enough. Like, there's no complaints there in that regard. But I do think that him flying into headers, etc., is never going to be the player that he is again. But, you know, you talk about what he's gained from that. Well, he seems to have found a more kind of calm, cerebral nature to the way that he's playing. And we're starting to see that game intelligence, those runs, that kind of ability to spot a gap, a little bit more clinicality, which we failed to see last year. And this was just exceptional. And look, again, it's about seniority, I think, and leadership. And, you know, we say that with Harry Wilson about Wales, but Raúl is a senior member of this Mexico squad who are going through a difficult time, and they've somehow managed to pull out a big win, a 2-0 against their biggest rivals. That's a massive result for Mexico because they felt like they were in the doldrums, and that's the kind of thing that will spin spirits and just lift people back into it. It wasn't perfect, but he was really, really good. But he's a senior member there, and I do wonder if the fact that obviously we spoke about losing leadership in the summer, losing Tim Ream, losing Bobby De Cordova-Reid, who are the players that have stepped up into that leadership group? I wonder if Raúl is one of them. You know, he is a senior player in this squad now. We are looking at him as kind of one of those players on field. He wore the armband a few times for Wolves when he was there. It's going to be interesting to see what he's kind of trusted with in terms of responsibility over the course of this season. And actually, if that does start to bring more of that of his game into play.
Yeah. Next up, there is so many to get through. Andreas Pereira. This is a bit more like there was a moment.
Called a scissor kick. Bosh, first touch.
It's such a great. It is a scissor kick. I actually said I put it on Fulhamish first thing this morning. I said bicycle kick because it was 6:30 and I was tired. And
it's not a bicycle kick.
It's not a bicycle kick. It's a scissors kick. I got it wrong.
Yeah,
I was a bit.
It's still well good though.
It's such a
great
goal.
finish.
George actually compared it to Richarlison's goal for Brazil at the Qatar World Cup.
Yep, nice.
It's very similar when you actually look at it. I mean, it's a lovely finish. Look, Peru. I think Andreas came on as a sub. Brazil were 2-0 up by the point he came on. He scored the third and a 4-0. It wasn't like it was against Argentina and a tense winner, but still for him to get off the mark for Brazil now, and now he's kind of like a fixture. Like what a amazing transformation. And he's had a bit of a difficult start to the season. You know, he's had people questioning his position. He seems to have found a little bit of a groove as well.
Yeah, wearing Vinny Jr.'s number as well, turning up in the number 7 shirt for Brazil. It's nice to see a Fulham player wearing 7 for Brazil, isn't it?
That must be like pinches. That must be one of the biggest pinch yourself moments in football when you get given the number 7 Brazil shirt.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I mean, it's not the Brazil 10, obviously, but it's still a very, very cool thing for Andreas to have done. And again, look, all these players coming back in with massive confidence boosts and kind of a sense that they're very important to their national teams. That's got to be positive from a Fulham perspective, I think.
Yeah. Okay. We've done a lot of positives. On to the negatives. Sasha Lukic has picked up a shoulder injury for Serbia. It feels like it's a bit. I mean, we remember where João Palhinha picked up that shoulder injury during pre-season, and it was about 3 to 4 weeks.
Yeah,
the prognosis looks similar. He went off in tears. It's gutting for him, particularly because he has just found his way into this team. He has just got through and made his mark in this team, and you just feel for him. Obviously, I'm concerned for Fulham as a team and what we're going to do without Sasha, but I also just really feel for Sasha personally. Yeah,
it's a really tough moment, obviously, because he just, as you say, found that groove, and he looked like being the key cog in Fulham's midfield. And I think it was interesting to see, you know, how much he'd been hurt by that, not necessarily in a physical sense, but actually the idea of not being able to carry on this form, I imagine, weighs into the emotional element of all of that. So, yes, a tough one. I think it probably will, as you say, be about a month. It's not a great time for our midfield, but equally it gives this opportunity. Sander Berge came in for big money, you know, in the summer. He played really well in the first game that Norway played, less so in their 5-1 defeat to Austria, where they got shredded. But equally, he was playing in a 2-man midfield, and it didn't feel like there was enough protection around them. And Austria are a very, very good side. So, you know, all of those things considered, big opportunity for Sander now, to step up. He grew into that game in the City game. We talked about it on the pod afterwards. And you kind of look at that and you think, okay, where does he, what went right, what went wrong in that regard? And you think, okay, well, can you step into that role? Can you have the discipline now to do what Sasha does and not go marauding out of the midfield, as he was given kind of a bit more license to, I think, in that City game with Sasha alongside him? He has to now kind of nail in and be that that beacon in the middle, be that kind of totem pole in which the Fulham defensive unit can organise around. And that's going to be interesting and see how he kind of adapts to that. But it's a big opportunity for him as much as it's pressure.
Yeah, and we'll come on to who exactly Marco chooses in the Aston Villa bit, although probably the answer is Sander Berge, but still a big discussion of how you make it all work. Finally, but the one I wanted to talk about, the Nigerian boys, Alex Iwobi and Calvin Bassey.
Spent this entire international break in an airport in Libya.
I mean, this is a wild story. So it feels like there's a bit of tit for tat. So Libya were upset because they were diverted to an airport before their game in Nigeria.
Yeah.
And so then Nigeria have travelled to Libya, were routed to an airport that was about a 3-hour drive from where the stadium was. We're told that they needed to get on this bus. And if you see this bus, it's how that's going to accommodate the Nigerian football team. They're like, where's the security? We're not doing a 3-hour drive through Libya. Thanks very much. We're locked in an airport for 16 hours and then refused to play the game. They seemed all in remarkably good spirits about it, but obviously not ideal. But then again, they haven't played much football.
Yeah, it's kind of a flip, right? Wobi did really well in the first game. They won 1-0 in the reverse fixture that happened Friday.
Yeah.
And then, it felt like on Monday was the day that they got trapped in this airport and everything went a little bit mad. It's not ideal. It's not ideal conditions, but equally they haven't played. There is a little bit more freshness associated with it. They would have had long flights, obviously, to get back to Nigeria and then back to the UK afterwards. So it's not perfect conditions, you'd imagine, but equally they're not injured. they're fine.
Yeah.
They've both played, a game of football. That's okay. It feels like maybe this one will be all right, but I feel desperately sorry for them. Like, this is such bad publicity. I think that kind of CAF was really doing a good job in moving forward, and we were seeing a lot of the love around AFCON last year. It felt like things were really going in one direction, and it just feels like occasionally you get one of these setback moments, and this really felt like one. William Troost-Ekong, who's the captain, basically was just like, we're not playing this game. We've decided that our treatment's
and he
not
accused Libya of doing this deliberately, of playing mind games, because their treatment in the reverse fixture, which sounded, from an outside perspective, completely neutral, sounded like there was a bit of a mix-up when Libya went, but there was no real malice in it. It was just like you got diverted and it wasn't ideal. Obviously, I'm sure Libya would deny
look at it
that.
differently, yeah.
But this one did just look like a proper, right, if you're going to mess us around, we're going to mess you around.
Yeah.
Like
really
actual,
not great.
Intentional.
Yeah.
They do deny that.
Yeah, of course. Oh, look, Victor Boniface and Victor Osimhen both have spoken about this, and both have been like, look, we need to do better, called on the federation to have better organisational abilities and all of these things. So I think there's a larger kind of system at play here, but Calvin and Alex will return in relatively good spirits and relatively good shape, you'd imagine.
Quite a funny moment. You might have seen it on Alex Iwobi's Instagram, where he's on the plane with Calvin Bassey. That they're in first class. They're doing all right. They have their own little those little pods. I've never sat in first class. I've only seen from afar. But they were in those pods, and Alex Iwobi was singing Calvin Bassey's song to him.
Fantastic.
Although Alex got the words wrong.
What did he say?
Because obviously the chant is, I'm your biggest fan, I'll follow you across the country. But Alex said, I'm your biggest fan, I'll follow you until you love me.
Oh, right, okay.
Calvin, which is actually more close to
which is also quite funny.
Yeah. But anyway, look, enjoyable content, and Calvin Bassey was singing along to his own chant as well, which I kind of enjoyed.
To see it.
A couple other notable mentions, probably one for Timmy Castagne.
Yeah, got great assist actually for Lois Openda's goal in the game between Belgium and France. Did really well. The kind of real problems of Belgium came down the other side. Dealt, I thought, quite nicely playing left back. dealt very nicely with the way that it all kind of shook out, actually. And I thought that his marking of Ousmane Dembele, who is notoriously tricky as a footballer, was pretty spot on. So he played about 70 minutes, and then he was replaced by Maxime de Kuyper. Yeah, good work all round from Timmy Castagne. Wouldn't be completely surprised, as you kind of noted earlier, if Castagne gets the nod at left back here, if Robinson's not had all that much time back in the training ground. I think that's the way that Marco would go.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, if he'd have played right back, he might have come up against Kylian Mbappe, but he doesn't play unimportant games for France anymore, does he? So,
absolutely nonsense. Strip him of the captaincy immediately. Go crawling back to Griezmann on both knees, Deschamps. This has really wound me up, so I don't think we should go into it.
Fair enough. I've touched a nerve. Right, we'll take a break there. Afterwards, we'll look ahead to Aston Villa on Saturday. This episode of Fulhamish is brought to you by NordVPN. NordVPN is a way of watching sporting matches from all around the world just by changing the location on your tablet, your laptop, or your phone. For instance, you can use NordVPN to watch football matches for a fraction of the cost, including those 3 p.m. fixtures that aren't available here in the UK. Plus, you can use NordVPN on up to 10 devices. So, for instance, if my dad goes on holiday to Spain, he can log in using my account, and then he can watch Match of the Day to catch up on those Fulham highlights. Only when Fulham win, of course. Right now, you can get a great deal by signing up for NordVPN at nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Not only will you get a great rate, but you'll get 4 months extra as well. Plus, it's completely risk-free thanks to NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. So to get that great rate plus 4 extra months, go to nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. That's nordvpn.com/Fulhamish. Part 2 of the Fulhamish podcast. It is Sammy here with Jack Collins on the Thursday Club. If you're heading to the Villa game on Saturday, make sure you pop in beforehand to Craft Beer Co. at Hammersmith Station. A beautiful pub, family-owned business with the best selection of beers in London. There's no Estrellas here. It's all amazing craft beers from various breweries across the capital. So yeah, if you're around Hammersmith either before or after the game, make sure you head to Craft Beer Co. and you'll be well served there. Jack, let's look ahead to Villa on Saturday.
I'll be raising you an Estrella Galicia from La Coruña.
Beautiful. Thank you very much. Villa on Saturday, back at the Cottage. I'm so happy to be back. I missed the Newcastle at home game, so I haven't been to the Cottage since West Ham, and that feels like an awfully long time ago. And obviously my lasting memory was just watching the West Ham fans go mental when Danny Ings buried it in. So I'm looking forward to going back, but obviously we know that this is a really, really difficult game. I feel like there was probably a good moment to face Villa this season would have been maybe post a Champions League game, because I feel like they're going to find that tough this season with all of those 8 fixtures, and they're not really used to the strains of, well, they were in the Conference League, weren't they? But still, this is a big...
Slightly different.
But obviously, they've had a couple of weeks. They'll have had a lot of players on international duty, but so have Fulham. We obviously got beaten twice by them last season, 3-1 at Villa Park and then 2-1 at Craven Cottage. They're just a really, really, really good team, aren't they?
Yeah, they're a really, really good side with probably, for my money, the best manager behind Pep Guardiola in the league at the helm. So it's a difficult game. They do have Champions League duty next week. So they will have one eye on that game against Bologna, which I think, aside from the Bayern game, was probably one of the tougher games that they've been thrown up.
Yeah.
So I think that they will have, especially having now won their first 2 in the Champions League, they're going to have, eyes on trying to get to that automatic spot. And that does mean that they will have to think about rotations and how that works. They've had, some good moments from players on international duty as well. John Duran getting another goal off the bench for Colombia last night was, it's just what he does now. Him
just
coming
hammers
on
it as hard as he
66th
can.
minute and just, he scores lots of goals. That's what he does. But you kind of look at where Villa are at. They had an interesting summer, I thought, that losing Douglas Luiz felt like a really big blow. They lost him to Juve. They didn't want to do that. They thought they'd be able to work out the PSR situation without losing a big name player. But I think in replacing him with Amadou Onana, they've made a really sensible move there. Onana struggled a little bit, I think, at Everton. There were a lot of good things in his underlying numbers, but we've seen some real kind of drastic improvements to his game, I think, since he's rocked up at Villa. Everton fans weren't that bothered, I don't think, about losing him, and yet his impact at Villa, adding goals to his game sort of all of a sudden is a big one, but also just the way that he patrols the midfield is really, really important, I think, to the way that Villa are going to operate. They just feel really strong across the board. There doesn't feel like any huge obvious weaknesses that you can dial into. They don't have massive capacity at right back, I suppose, is the only real one that you kind of look at and think, well, how are they going to deal with that? If Konsa has to go out there, then you see that means that they get weaker in the middle of the defence, and Diego Carlos comes back in. He was very good again Bayern game, but ultimately that's a tricky one to kind of handle. And I think that's really the only point of pressure that I look at this Villa side and think, yeah, okay, you can get them there. And I suppose that basically shows you a really well-drilled, well-versed side who can attack in a number of different ways. I'm really intrigued to see this battle with Morgan Rogers and Calvin Bassey and Ollie Watkins and Joachim, and how Fulham try to deal with that. I imagine it'll be Bassey trying to track Watkins in behind. That means that there's going to be this really ultra-physical duel between Anderson and Morgan Rogers, which could be very interesting at the same time. We haven't really faced anyone who plays two up top yet. So actually that shift of formation and trying to deal with that is going to be interesting. But it's two managers who know how to plan a game, right? And that's the interesting thing. I think Fulham will look to come out fast. I think Fulham will look to start hot, which is something we've struggled with recently. But at home, first game back in a while, feels like the throttle is there to be pushed, especially after the frustration that kind of lingers since the City defeat, but also their pride in that performance. We can go toe-to-toe with anyone. If we can go toe-to-toe with City, we can go toe-to-toe with anyone. So Fulham are going to look to kind of ride that momentum, I think. But Emery is also a master tactician, and you have to appreciate that he's going to have a game plan here to look at and think, how do we adapt to where Fulham's strengths are as well? So I think it'd be a really interesting game. I don't think there's going to be loads in it. Both teams have scored in this fixture for ages. Both teams have managed to get on the score sheet. So you'd imagine there will be goals, but I think this could be a really interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Villa's season, only one defeat in the league, which was at home to Arsenal, which is obviously no disgrace. But actually, you look at some of their results and they have got wins in most of them. They have been playing well. They are in fifth. But I look at some of the results and they've had to kind of scrape through quite a few of them. They were 2-0 down to Everton. They were 1-0 down against Aston Villa. I think Wolves went 1-0 up at Villa Park. Ipswich managed to go 1-0 up and then draw 2-2. It feels a little bit like I'm looking at a team that does get the job done ultimately, and they should be commended for that, but they're also gettable. They are not thrashing teams. And so therefore, it makes me think that whilst I would say that obviously Villa are favourites for Saturday, understandably, I think there's a real big chance, and as you mentioned, if we're going to go toe-to-toe with City, we can go toe-to-toe with anyone, particularly at the Cottage.
Yeah, I just think it's going to be interesting to see how Marco Silva sets up for this, right? Because actually what made us so dangerous against City was kind of ceding the ball. I don't think Fulham are going to do that at home against Aston Villa. I don't think that's going to be Fulham's game plan. It's not going to be trying to suck them in and spring Adama Traore on the counter. I'd imagine Emile Smith-Rowe comes back in for this game. Fulham look to have slightly more kind of creating, a creative midfield and that flexibility to switch out of that left-hand side with Alex Iwobi and Smith-Rowe kind of dovetailing on that side. How does that look with everything else that's kind of in play? And does that open us up a little bit more in the middle to the more defensively minded three that we had, obviously, in that City game? Now, Sasa being out probably makes that decision for Marco, but I think he probably would have gone with 2 in there and a 10 anyway, because 1, that's his preferred formation, and 2, I just do think that at home, he's going to want to be able to try and show that Fulham can be ball dominant against strong sides. And look, we did it against Newcastle. We were very, very good against Newcastle. We took the game to them. And actually, that's probably the game plan that you'd imagine is going to be executed here in the same way. It's just whether Villa are a better side than Newcastle. They are, spoiler, but they are a better side than Newcastle.
But not miles.
Not miles, but they're a more cohesive side than Newcastle. The way that Newcastle defended against us was truly quite poor at times, and we should have probably scored more.
Yeah.
So you'd imagine that's not going to be the case with Villa. But I think that we've shown that we can go toe to toe with a lot of teams, and that we have that capability to, to actually run and play our football and impose that upon a game as much as teams can do that to us.
Yeah. In terms of then Fulham's starting lineup, we've talked about Sasa. That does feel like a fairly obvious. We've got Sander Berge. We've been building him up minutes by minutes. He probably wouldn't have started this game if Sasa was fit, but now he isn't fit. It feels a bit...
You know what? I think he might have. I think they might have gone with Berge and Lukic at the base here, just because Andreas is another one coming back late. We spoke about the US and Mexico players. Well, Andreas played Tuesday night as well. Slightly less late, but still late. So he's another one that's going to be coming back off a long flight. Probably won't be back in training until Friday. Now, we know that Marco loves Andreas, and we know that, ultimately when he's given ability to play, he'll play. But I do wonder if he would have, as you said, he's also capable of understanding when players need rests, etc. That could have been one that he might have looked at. So obviously that's out the window. I think Andreas comes straight back in. Obviously he came off the bench, so it's not like he went and played 90 minutes of football on Tuesday night, but it's still a long journey. So worth thinking about. I wonder what happens with Anthony Robinson at left back, and I wonder if it is Castagne that gets a nod there, just in order to try and shut that down and try and make sure that Robinson doesn't pick up any injuries. I mean, the good news is, from a kind of overall perspective on Robinson, that he wasn't sent home. So the players that Mauricio Pochettino wanted to have their minutes managed, Christian Pulisic, Weston McKennie, Zach Steffen, a couple of others, were sent home from the US camp before this game against Mexico. The idea that Robinson wasn't, maybe one, speaks to their lack of defensive depth at left back, but two, I think, does probably show that Pochettino feels like he's in a good enough condition to play regular football and be able to play both those games without it necessarily affecting his club form, because Poch has spoken about the fact that club form is going to be really important for the US as they kind of drive into the next international break.
Yeah, I mean, he only played 45
against
Mexico as well. So the only one which makes me wonder in terms of the lack of rest, that he might change it up. I feel like he won't change Robinson because he's too key, he's too integral, and he only played 45.
I just wonder if it's because Castagne's been pretty good. Anyway, we'll talk about Castagne later.
The only one I do wonder is Raúl. Raúl is an older player, and you've also probably had Muniz just sitting around at Motspur Park, just banging a ball against a wall for 2 weeks.
Playing one touch.
Yeah. You do just wonder if that's... And I think Marco maybe is in this space where, whilst Raúl has the shirt, that striker berth is slightly interchangeable at the moment. So that's the only one where maybe I could see him just going for Muniz, and it's not a Raúl, you dropped. It's just I want to bring you on at 60 minutes, and I'm going to give Muniz the start.
Yeah, I mean, obviously got his first goal, so there's that thing, and he scored, a goal against Villa at the Cottage last year, right? He scored that excellent, weirdly round the keeper finish.
That was such a weird goal.
Very strange goal. But yeah, I mean, he did well in that game, and yes, that was during his purple patch, but equally, he's shown that he can cope with these defenders, and shown that he was able to to fight in that battle. I wouldn't say he necessarily won it, but he was definitely in the fight. So I wouldn't be surprised either. But I do think the rest of the team is probably going to pick itself.
Yeah, which it kind of is week on week now, isn't it? And feels like the most settled lineup I remember under Marco.
For a while, anyway.
Yeah, even in the Championship, he did chop and change it a little bit.
A little bit. I think towards the end of that Championship run, we could pretty much pick the team, but this does feel settled, and it's a good thing.
Yeah. A couple of things to talk about. One thing that is desperately sad is the passing away of Jack Kidd, a Fulham fan, age 30. His brother Tom announced it on Twitter. Jack had been going to Fulham for 25 years. I know he's a pod listener as well. Talked about his favourite memories being Fulham in a Europa League final, and how Fulham's win against Forest was a real, spirit lifter, and watch was such a difficult time. I don't know if there's going to be a minute's applause or anything like that for Jack on Saturday, but would love to hope that there might be.
Yeah.
Desperately sad news, and just all of our thoughts with Tom and his family and everything like that.
100%. Yeah, it obviously desperate news to see on social media, and thoughts with Tom and the whole Kid family.
Yeah. A couple of slightly odd things. First of all, if you're going to the Villa game on Saturday and you drive, I never thought we'd talk about parking restrictions on Fulhamish.
Here we go, Hammersmith and Fulham Council on the beat.
Here we are. It's going to be a bit of a nightmare. I don't really understand the parking regulations too much, but effectively, if you park in that bit between Hammersmith and the Crabtree...
Yeah, it's like between the Palace Road and the Crabtree, the parking restrictions have changed, so you can only keep your car there for 2 hours on match days now.
Which basically isn't enough time.
Unless you literally park up, like 5 minutes before the game, run to the Cottage, and then run back afterwards. I think that's the only way you could do it. So it's not ideal. But it's just that bit, that kind of corner between the Crabtree and the new development at Hammersmith there, and that sort of that block. So the other side of the Palace Road is still fine. But that bit, just the roads up to towards the Crabtree from the Palace Road, I would avoid. Also,
they're doing, again, traffic and travel on Fulhamish. I love it.
Now over to Sammy for the travel updates.
Hey, I did it on the radio. I was Absolute Radio's travel boy for a good year. That was one of my favourite jobs.
It's better than being the T-boy, I suppose.
Yeah, I guess. No, there's roadworks on Putney Bridge as well, which is, I drove there not on a match day in the last week or so, and it was gridlocked then. So
just don't drive.
Yeah.
If you can. Obviously, some people have to drive. I appreciate that.
Yeah, but if you can, it sounds like an absolute nightmare.
It's one for the trains if you can.
Yeah, and you can have a couple of cans.
There you go.
On the train. Another kind of any other business, Fulham-wise, the fixtures came out yesterday for December and January, Jack. I've never seen
Fulham. Wild fixtures.
I've never seen Fulham be so popular. So
who decided that Fulham Southampton was going on TV? I barely want to watch that game, and I'm a Fulham fan.
Yeah, I'm quite annoyed about that, because I planned on doing like a little Christmas party on that Sunday, and I was like, well, they won't move Fulham Southampton.
No. Yes. There's some really weird ones. We're on a Thursday night against Brighton now. The Sunday against Manchester United. That's quite something.
That's the biggest
Sunday
one.
At 7 p.m. Wild.
What are TNT doing? 7 p.m. Sunday. I mean, you can see it from their point of view. They might get an extra 5,000 viewers.
To be fair, and like from a very selfish perspective, I don't really mind that, because like obviously I can just get on the Piccadilly line home. It's not that deep from my perspective, but it's fine, because the Manchester United fans can obviously just get on the tube home as well.
Yes.
So it's mostly
for any real Manchester United fans who do actually live in Manchester, I feel terribly sorry for them.
Yeah.
And I know.
Yeah, obviously it's rubbish. Like, much as I'm being facetious, like obviously it's crap. Equally, I don't know what that you can do here. I saw some people being like, on Twitter being like, what are the FST doing about this? And I was like, look, I'm highly critical at times of what the FST do. And look, they do some good work. And also I think there are things that they could do better. And I've said that to Jakob on here and to other members of it and question those. But there is really little that the FST can do here in terms of fighting the TV companies and broadcast companies in terms of changing tickets.
Fulham have yet almost next to no say. I did see that I think Man United are in European action the week before.
Yeah, they're on the Thursday night, obviously.
And I think they might be trying to avoid teams playing kind of 12:30, although they wouldn't have played Saturday anyway if they were playing Thursday night, so I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it couldn't have been one of the 2 o'clocks, but hey, it's more eyeball.
The last train home to Manchester is at like 9:30, so you can't even go. If you live in Manchester, like there's no way you can do it.
Yeah, it's rubbish, isn't it?
Fly, I suppose.
I don't think it's a flight.
You laugh, but I'm literally flying home from Manchester on Boxing Day to get to the Chelsea game.
Yeah, that's one of the only ones that actually wasn't moved was Chelsea.
There's no trains on Boxing Day, so I'm flying from Manchester Airport to Heathrow to get it back. There you go.
You love a trip to Stamford Bridge.
I know for a fact that the 1 year I don't go, we will win, and we will never win there for the rest of my life. So I have to go. Also, I did call this before the season. If you go back to the season predictions episode, that our big win would be Chelsea on Boxing Day. So I've got to back it.
Fine. And finally, in my any other business before we go on to emails, this is a really interesting thread that was dropped just before we went on air by our friends at Fulham Focus. They have looked through the new Riverside brochure because the costs are now out for how much the different packages are going to cost in the Riverside. So, Yaz, do you want to play this as well?
Yeah, let's play.
Yeah, let's give it a go.
Okay, so I'm going to give you what the kind of package is, and you have to tell me what the cost is. There's no mention of VAT here, so we're just assuming that
Flat costs.
We're just assuming that VAT doesn't exist because they don't have that. So first of all is Match Day Plus tier. You get your Riverside seat, 3 drinks and a halftime snack in your lounge area with views of the river. How much is that for a season entry price?
A season.
For a whole season?
Yeah.
So how much is a base season ticket in the Riverside? £1,000?
Yeah, but yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, a little
so
bit more.
you get 3 drinks a game.
What would that
And a halftime snack, that's all important.
What is that going to be? Like mini
some of those
cheddars?
pretzels.
I'm going to say 3K.
Yeah,
No, I think that's probably low.
I think it's more than that.
Yeah.
I would say like 4.
4.
You were closer with the first 3,250.
Okay.
Okay, right.
Next,
I kind of feel like because I've got such a bad opinion of how this is going to work that actually I was like, oh, it's not actually that. It's dreadful.
Yeah.
It's dreadful.
This shows
But
how
it's not as
little
bad as I
faith we
thought
have.
it was going to be.
next up is the dugout, which is located in the basement of the Riverside.
Oh, you don't get to sit in the dugout? I was like, if they're selling that, right, we're all out. I'm done.
No, the dugout is located in the basement of the Riverside. It offers traditional small plates, drinks up to halftime, and a gaffer's perspective behind the dugout.
Up to half time.
But with a fan's spirit. Drinks up to halftime.
Like including half time.
No, up to halftime. That's
So
very
you
important.
don't
Can't have a
get
drink at
you don't get
half-time?
drinks at half time.
No, up to halftime.
Or the second half. So they've all worn off by the time you finish the game.
No, I think you could maybe go out of 30 minutes maybe and get a dry. I don't know exactly, but it says here specifically up to halftime. So I'm going
So
to
they're
say
included. 3 drinks and small plates until half time.
until halftime. But once halftime is
Canapes are
How many hours before the game can you go in?
you would definitely be missing a lot of the first half, wouldn't you?
This sounds like Don Betts' dream. He just wouldn't have to watch any football.
There's lots of good screens as well in this dugout. I'm seeing the pictures. How much is the dugout?
£5,000.
5.5.
4.5.
Oh,
Bargain.
we have no faith. No faith.
I have
at
no
all.
faith. My faith has been eroded.
Taking the stairs up to level 01, you have the Thames Barroom, offering great networking, inclusive drinks, even after the game, and a legend appearance. No views of the pitch or river, but you do get some nice perks.
You can't watch the game.
No, as in like from the hospitality.
Oh, you have to
No
go back to
view-
your seat.
Yeah, which is logical.
Okay,
That's
yeah.
how
No
most
view of the
hospitality
pitch.
works.
That is pretty reasonable. Like, I thought it was like, no, you can just go in there during the game and just drink and eat.
So how much is level 01?
6.
Oh, but the Thames Barroom, sorry.
6.
5.5.
Yeah, it's pretty close. 5,250.
Oh, lovely.
Next up, we have the originals. Here is networking reworked with inclusive drinks, roaming plates, and chef stations to keep you going through those high-level business meetings. How much does the originals cost? It does look lovely.
7.5.
6.
Bang on, £6,000,
Yes,
exactly.
brilliant.
I've overshot everything.
Finally, not finally. God, there's more. We've got the Sky Deck. This includes the pool.
Oh, I was gonna say, when's
this is
the
it.
pool
This is the
coming?
one.
So this is covering the top 3 levels of the
Come on.
Riverside. You can experience experimental food and drinks pop-ups. How much for a season in Sky Deck?
750.
7.2.
Yaz, you're so good at this. 7750. So Yaz is closest again. Next up, the Brasserie offers you an a la carte menu designed and curated, but not cooked, by a Michelin-starred chef. Your seat on the halfway line is the best of both worlds. Doesn't really specify much more.
I assume
than
that means you can look backwards out to the river as well as looking forwards to the pitch if we're 4-0 down to Aston Villa.
There's only 100. There's only 116 of these, so we're getting pretty exclusive now. There's only 116 spaces in the brasserie. So
10 grand.
Oh, okay. Exclusivity involved.
Michelin star chef creation, not cooking.
Not cooked. I want to know who this chef is if he's not there. 9.
8.5. Finally, the tip top, the gourmet. Here, different Michelin star chefs will rotate their menus to fill you up on match day as a first team player will pitch up and answer your questions. Only 96.
How much do we put bonuses in their contracts to have to do this?
Which player as
mate,
well?
You gotta go up top and speak to the business people.
Got a job for Vinicius.
It's a 5-course a la carte menu inspired by Michelin star chefs, best seats in the house, and a stunning Thames view.
Do you get free drinks after the game though?
I think that
Up until half time.
yeah, this is inclusive drinks, Grand Cru champagne, cocktails, and sommelier curated wines. I think we're talking like tip of the top.
What was the last one?
The last one was 8.5.
I'm gonna
12.
go with 11.
You're closest. This one's 10.
Oh no!
You went too much, Yaz. On the final one, you went too
I got
much.
one right.
Confident.
And that is Fulham's new corporate offering. And if you want to see that whole thread, it's really funny. Fulham _focus on X.
Seat. Wow, 10 grand a seat. That's a lot.
It is, 10 grand
But
for a
also,
season
like,
ticket.
it's one of those weird ones
That
where
is,
if you're a company, right, and you want to do this as your corporate thing, surely you buy a box.
I don't think, I might be wrong, but apart from the ones that are like staying at the ends, I don't think you now get a box in the traditional sense. I think generally hospitality has kind of got a bit more evolved from that.
No, but I get that. But like a lot of this chat here has been about business meetings, right? They were talking about networking and all of that stuff. And for what it's worth, I don't really feel like why we should be doing this at the football. But if it's making the club money, etc., then fine. There is this kind of sense that, like, surely if you are networking, what you do is you bring other people to this. So how would you having one season ticket in this area help? Like, I don't really understand.
Well, maybe you'd get like 2 or 3 for your company. Maybe you'd be like, I have one and then I entertain guests and I bring guests along to the football would be my guess. By the way, if you spent 10 grand on, I think it was called the Gourmet, the last one, that is £526 per game. Which certainly makes the Hammersmith end.
Yeah. How much is how much it costs you to go out to a Michelin star restaurant?
Not that much.
No, I know, but like an unlimited champagne. Like I'm not suggesting this is a good thing, but I mean just in terms of like actually your bang for your buck, that's probably better than like the bottom offering, if you know what I mean. Because like if you get unlimited, so what are you saying, £500 per game?
Yeah.
You drink a bottle of champagne, that's what, £100?
Yeah.
You have a Michelin star meal, 150? I don't know. I've never been to a Michelin star restaurant.
just to add that in.
I don't know what that costs. So maybe 150, 200 £200? I don't know.
Yeah,
so then suddenly you're like, okay, so you're paying, so whatever it is, you're paying basically £200 and you're getting a game at that top, the best seats in the house, and you're getting free drinks and like other food as well at the same time. Like that makes more sense to me, weirdly, than like the bottom offering.
What, the dugout?
Yeah. Like, because that's just having pints in a place which is like, it's basically a sports bar.
Yes.
Like that, like the actual top end of that, I kind of a bit like, yeah, okay, that's an experience. Like, it's not how I would choose to watch football, but I kind of get that as a concept. I don't understand why you buy a season ticket for what it's worth, but like, I get that as a concept. Whereas I think for like, why would you want to go and watch Fulham in a sports bar in the ground? That doesn't make any sense to me.
It's
like,
in the basement as well.
With what, free drinks up to, like, that doesn't make any sense. Like none of that makes any sense. Like at least the like gourmet offering is like, okay, this is like an absolute day out job, right? Like that makes like more conceptual sense to me.
It makes the actual basic season ticket as well more mind blowing. To be £1,000 and it's just a seat.
Yeah. So what was the lowest offering?
The lowest offering was 3,250 match day plus, which is basically...
Okay, it's actually quite a lot more.
Which is you basically just get access to bars and 3 complimentary drinks. for £3,000, 3,250.
So do a little bit of live maths for me here.
I do get your point.
So it's £5 a pint, £6 a pint. I don't know what is £6 a pint.
Yeah, you're getting about £20 worth of drinks.
20 quid worth of drinks times 19,
and divided by, and it's those tickets are £170 a game over, and you're buying a season ticket as well. So
you're paying about 150 quid a seat.
Yeah, and you get a few other things. You get a bit of I actually kind of weirdly agree with you that if you're going to do it. If you are a gazillionaire and listening to this podcast, first of all, sponsorship opportunities are available.
Yeah, and we'd also love to come once.
Yeah. Once. Second of all, go for the gourmet. We've done the
maths.
Yeah.
And actually it's better value if you get a Michelin star meal and a bottle of Grand Cru champagne and some sommelier wines.
This is amazing. Anyway, thank you.
Fulham.
Thank you to Fulham Focus for the brilliant detective work there and a fantastic thread. Let's do a few emails before we finish. I like this one from Ethan Two-Time. Hi guys, first time listener, long time emailer. Question for the Thursday Club. I think I'm in a minority here, and I know Kenny has been doing quite well for us this season, but I can't help thinking that it would be even stronger if Castagne was back as our number one at right back. I think Kenny offers a lot and he's obviously brilliant one-on-one, but I've noticed him get completely caught out of position on a number of occasions this season. I find it strange that Castagne has been almost completely frozen out on the back of a really good first season with us where he kept Kenny out of the team all year. I feel safer with Timmy at right back. Am I own on this one? Love the pod. Ethan from Fulham Fans Island.
Shout out to Ethan. I think I've spoken to Ethan recently.
Probably have.
Yeah, I have indeed. Anyway, it's an interesting question. There's a bit of it I disagree with. I don't feel safer with Castagne at right back. I feel safer with Tete at right back. But would we be better going forward? Maybe. That would be maybe the caveat I would use. Would we be better going forward if Castagne was in the team rather than Tete? Potentially. I think Castagne's crossing ability is excellent. Kenny's isn't bad, but I like the way that Castagne gets into opposition thirds and makes things happen. He's a bit more of a byline player in that he'll often get and go for a pullback. Maybe that's part of it, that we've obviously tilted leftwards in order to have Anthony Robinson flying forward to help out with the Iwobi and Smith Rowe and their kind of triangle going there. And perhaps it's just a case of having someone who's a little bit more defensively solid in there, a kind of right centre-back, if you will, when we do tilt a little bit. So I think that might have something to do with it. But I don't think I feel safer, but I do think there is probably an argument to suggest that actually in their games that we are chasing, in games that we're dominating, that Castagne might be able to have a little bit more thrust going forward.
Yeah, I'm very easy on this one.
Yeah.
I really am they're both great, and it's a bit sad and it is a bit weird really that Castagne did nothing wrong seemingly and lost his place. But also Tete didn't do a lot wrong when he lost his place. And
I just think it's two very good right backs competing with each other for the position. And obviously last year, Castagne had that kind of, I think they probably gave him a clean slate in the summer and went, right, earn the spot. Tete clearly did a little bit more in pre-season than Castagne did in terms of earning that start and has done nothing to be dropped.
It's also I think it's one of those positions, it's really hard to step in. You saw, Tete obviously had a nightmare, didn't he, when he stepped in against Forest last year.
Yeah.
And that was his chance and he kind of blew it. And Tete and Castagne, whilst didn't do anything wrong, was not exactly didn't set the world alight in his kind of Carabao Cup game. So I think it's unfortunate. The only thing is Tete has an injury in him. He always has.
Yeah.
So I don't wish that on him. I really hope he can stay fit for the full season. But
it's great to have a backup this consistent and this available. And look, I think the thing that might count against Castagne a tad here is his versatility, right? He's good and played at left back for Belgium. And we know that if something went wrong with Anthony Robinson on that side, that actually Marco Silva might want someone who he trusts a little bit more defensively than what we saw from Ryan Sessegnon.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see how that one kind of develops over the course of the season. But it wouldn't surprise me if Anthony Robinson was out, and we spoke about it, he might be this weekend. We don't know exactly how it's going to play, but if he is out this weekend, it wouldn't surprise me at all if Castagne is the man that steps in there.
This one from Patrick Hanna. Hey lads, fan from Oz here. The boys on the Thursday show were talking about acronyms using player names from our team. Feel like they missed a great one across our backline, paying homage to Charlie XCX's new album doing the rounds at the moment. Bassey, Robinson, Anderson, Tete, Fulham's Brat backline.
Fantastic.
He's even made an image of
phenomenal.
The famous Brat album with Bassey, Robinson, Anderson, and Tete. Nicely drawn out. Says, keep up the good work, up the cottages, from Patty Hannah.
Nice. Great stuff. Love that.
I love that as well.
Really good.
This one from Ben on the subject of ticket handouts. Yeah, we discussed that a couple of weeks ago. We had an anonymous emailer said that Fulham gave lots of tickets to his son's grassroots football team. Ben says, Dear Fulhamish, hope this email finds you well. Just listen to the Thursday pod. On the subject of free tickets, my mate's brother, who lives near the cottage, had free tickets placed through his letterbox for the West Ham game. So it's not just children's groups that Fulham have been giving tickets out to. Even worse, he's a Chelsea fan.
Oh, God.
Yours sincerely, from Ben.
I mean, look, again...
and he also actually clarified that they didn't actually just pop tickets through the letterbox. It was a letter offering him tickets.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I mean, look, again, with things like this, I do think that there is something in that Fulham should be trying to harness local support, right? Like people who live around the cottage, and especially because that area is quite fluid, I think, in terms of people moving in and out at the moment, actually trying to get people down to the cottage and get them embedded in the club is not a bad thing on its own.
Get them in the gourmet. They've got money.
Yes, get them in the gourmet. They don't need free tickets. But I think that
I've seen some of those houses. Some people down those roads can afford the gourmet.
Yeah, exactly. But the point being that I think it's a good thing that Fulham are trying to harness that like hyper local support base. I just think that all of this feels wrong in the context of where we are about season tickets and the rest.
Yeah, exactly. This one from Brett Rowlands. Hi team, thank you for the pod and your weekly insights. Makes following this wonderful club from Melbourne a much easier task. I love it when we find people so far away.
There's two Australians.
Yes. Loved the way we played on Saturday. I assume he's talking about City. I have a question about how we lined up and why. We played a 4-5-1 at times, but at times Iwobi dropped back to make it a clear 5-4-1. Not sure if Adama did the same. It only seemed to happen when the ball was on the opposite wing and not all the time to my untrained eye. Can you explain the why for me? Many thanks, from Brett.
Yeah, I mean, it very much was only on that one side. And actually, I think it's quite interesting how Fulham started to play in that regard. I would say it probably wasn't even a 5-4-1 at that point. I'd say it was a 5-3-2 with Adama left up top alongside Raúl to try and chase those balls over the top. So it's definitely part of the transition thing that we talked about, right? And Fulham being in possession in that game was rare. So therefore, the opportunities you're going to get with City, pouring men into the Fulham half because they had such ball dominance allows you those opportunities to break over the top. And Raúl sort of played a kind of central role in trying to hold the ball up and bring others into play. And Adama went firing down that wing. So the way that the system tilted, if you will, meant that Adama pushed from sort of left midfield, if you will, up to like a out and out left winger. And as he did so, Iwobi swung backwards to kind of play into that right wing back role. And I think that it was important because if Fulham could utilise their pace down that left hand side, that also allows Anthony Robinson a little bit more. If Iwobi's playing at right wing back, you shift sort of Tete over into right centre back, then Anderson's there, and then Calvin Bassey's on the left of it, who we know has played left back before. It gives you that opportunity to push Anthony Robinson into the firing line as well, so that you can break with pace with two players down that side. And in a team that doesn't have all that much rapid pace outside of Adama and Robinson, and that, for example, is why I think on most games, Fulham will have Adama and Robinson on different wings in order to unleash that in different ways. But because we knew it was City and there wasn't going to be the same kind of ability to attack, the crossfield ball goes left off Anderson because obviously he's right-footed. So you want that space in behind to be the one that's being attacked. And with two players of pace who can get up there and support each other, I think that's why the Iwobi move made more sense in terms of him playing right wing back, because you're not going to see Alex Iwobi galloping on in the same way that you are for someone like Adama or Robinson.
Yeah. All right, that'll do for the pod today. If you're coming to the live show on Saturday, really looking forward to seeing you there. The show should be getting underway about 6:15. The doors will open from 6, obviously, depending on when the game finishes. I know that it's got to be over by 8, because you'll never guess. Fleetwood Back are playing.
Are you sticking around
us.
for it?
I might do.
They sound really good.
My mum and dad are coming to the live show, and they love Fleetwood Mac, so they might be up for sticking around and seeing Fleetwood Mac. But anyway, it will be over by 8 because the Fleetwood Mac guys have got to take the stage. So if you're coming on Saturday, enjoy. If you can't make it though, we will be uploading the podcast first thing Monday morning, and then we'll be back this time next Thursday. Jack, thank you.
Thank you, Sammy. Always a pleasure.
Have a lovely weekend, and fingers crossed Fulham can get another home win against Aston Villa. You Whites.
You Whites.